So we'll continue from where we stopped yesterday. So yesterday we're actually talking about asymmetric. I remember we talked about the block and the stream part of that, the block ciphers, and then the stream ciphers. So these are part of the symmetric encryption. And so today we'll quickly talk about asymmetric encryption under cryptography. Remember, the cryptography is either symmetric or asymmetric. And in the case of asymmetric encryption, it is in a situation whereby it uses both the public key and the private key to decrypt the information. So asymmetric algorithm, also called public key algorithm. So another name for asymmetric is also public key, and designed in a way that the encryption and the decryption keys are different. So when you send with the public, you will need to have the private key to be able to decrypt the content. Asymmetric algorithm achieve confidentiality, authenticity, and by using this process. It has a key length of about 512 to 4096. That's quite long, and a suitable, substantially slower than symmetric algorithms. So you can see here that the key length is quite large, and with this it is slower, considering the fact that it has to process through this length of security architecture. So common examples of asymmetric encryption algorithm are described in the table. So we have the Diffie-Hellman, key length of about 512 to 1024, even down to 4096. The longer the key, the better the security for it will take a lot of time for the hackers to be able to decipher that. So this algorithmic key allows two parties to agree on a key that they can use to encrypt message they want to send. An example of this Diffie-Hellman is like your SSH. So we also have the digital signature standard as a DSS digital signature, which is about 512 to 1024 length. And then we have the elliptic curve techniques. These are all asymmetric encryption algorithm. So asymmetric encryption minus confidentiality. So asymmetric algorithms are used to provide confidentiality without pre-sharing a password. So if you want to look at it critically, it's a process that can be used to summarize using the formula, the public key plus the private key. So you need the private key to decrypt. So it's encrypted with a public key. And at the receiving end, you need a private key to decrypt. And with that, you have confidentiality. So you can see from the analogy to your right, you can see Alice requires and uses Bob's public key to encrypt a message. And then once it is sent, Bob will now decrypt the message with a private key. This is the way the asymmetric algorithm works. So asymmetric encryption in the case of authentication. So the authentication objective of asymmetric algorithm is initiated with the private key encryption process. So the process can be summarized using the formula, private key, and then it requires public key for decryption. That's in the case of authentication. So for the confidentiality, we said you require the public key, and then you need the private key to decrypt. So here in authentication, you need the public key, and then you need you need a private key to encrypt, and then you need the public key to decrypt. Okay, so for the Diffie-Hellman, I said it's actually an asymmetric mathematical algorithm, but in this case, it allows two computers to generate an identical shared secret without having communicated before. Now. So in this case, you can see an exchange using, for example, the IPsec VPN, and also SSH data when it is being exchanged. Recall, this allows two separate devices to generate their own identical shared secret. So when you use SSH, it's also a typical example of the Diffie-Hellman. Recall, this is the algorithm we're talking about here. Okay, so the Diffie-Hellman uses different groups to determine the strength of the key that is used in the key agreement process. So the higher group numbers are more secure, but require additional time to compute the key. So the following identifies the Diffie-Hellman group by Cisco iOS software and the associated prime numbers. So you can see the first group is 768 bit and down to the 16 group, which is 4096 bit. But recall the group determine the strength of the key. So it all depends on which group you're looking at. So there's a video you need to watch to actually take a further understanding of this cryptography. And there's a lab for encrypting messages with OpenSSL, and then decrypting messages with OpenSSL. And so in this lab, you will complete the following objectives: set up the scenario, you create and encrypt files, and recover encrypted zip file password. And then you also have lab to complete the following objective: examine telnet section with Wireshark, and then examine SSH section with Wireshark. Recall the SSH is secure, and like we said, the Diffie-Hellman algorithm. But your telnet is not as secure. It's not even secure compared to SSH. So you're looking at port 22 and port 23 as a case may be. So let's look at public key cryptography. So using digital signatures. So digital signatures are mathematical techniques used to provide authenticity, integrity, and non-repudiation. So in this case, you require a digital signature to use asymmetric cryptography. And these digital signatures are commonly used in the following two situations: under coding signing. And this code signing is used to verify the integrity of executable files downloaded from a vendor website. So it's used Signal Digital Certificate to authenticate and verify the identity of the site, that is the source of the files. So it always do a check from the source. And then the digital certificates are used for authenticate the identity of a system with a vendor website. So we also have, it also generates varying digital signatures. And recall this signature is just to be able to check, to authenticate, to be sure that the signature is the right one. So it's all about verification. So digital signature for coding signing still are commonly used to provide assurance, like we said earlier, of the authenticity and the integrity of the software code. So it always, and that's why if you check most times, some of these public key cryptography are also very important, even in the case of antiviruses, for verification with the server and all that. So digitally signing code provides several assurances about the code. The code is authentic and is actually sourced by the publisher. The code has not been modified since it left the software publisher. The publisher undeniably published the code, and this provides non-repudiation of the act of publishing. So the digital signature is another way for authentication to verify the source of your files and to be sure that that file it has not been compromised. So the properties of a file that has a digital signed certificate as follows. One, the file properties. In this case, this executable file was downloaded from the internet and it contains a software tool from Cisco system. So the file properties will tell. The digital signature will also tell. In this case, this tab which reviews the file is from a trusted organization, Cisco systems, and then the digital signature details, certificate information, and certificate path. These are all properties that will display to show the authenticity of the signature. And a digital certificate also is another public key cryptography. In this case, enable users, host, and organization to securely exchange information over the network. It is used to authenticate and verify that the user who is sending a message is who they claim to be. So oftentimes it happens more on the web, for certification. So digital certificates can also be used to provide confidentiality for the receiver with the means to encrypt a reply. And in this case, they are similar to physical certificates, just like you have so you be sure that what you have from one end is the same as what you have at the other end. So digital certificate independently verifies and identify that's identity. In other words, a certificate verifies an identity, identify a signature, verify also the information coming from that identity. So you could see here that you need these digital signatures at the two ends. Once there's an exchange between the host and the end devices. So still the same digital signatures. Let's go straight to authorities and the PKI trust system. In this case, you're looking more on the public key management. So when establish an asymmetric connection between two hosts, the hosts will exchange their public key information. So in this case, the trusted parties on the internet validate the authenticity of this public key using a digital certificate. So first, you require two systems to exchange, and the other one is to ensure that it is from a trusted party. And if it is not, it will be discarded. So the third party issued a credentials that are difficult to forge. From that point forward, all individuals who trust the third party simply accept the credentials that the third party issued. So the public key infrastructure consists of specifications, your systems, tools that are used to create, manage, distribute, use, store, and revoke digital certificates. And the certificate authority create digital certificates by trying a public key to a confirmed identity, such as a website or individual. So these certificates will be produced to check the authenticity of the information coming from the source. And once that is certified before exchange is allowed. So the public key infrastructure is needed to support large-scale distribution, identification of public key encryption keys. The PKI actually framework facilitates a high scalable trust relationship. It also consists of the hardware, software, people policies, procedures needed to create and manage, distribute, and revoke digital certificates. So the figure shows the main element of the PKI, as you can see so you can see the certificate database coming in from the source, and then you could see the PKI certificate authority. That's the body responsible to ensure that they check the validity of the signatures of what is coming in to be able to certify that before exchange of information is allowed. So the below figure actually shows how the elements of the PKI is interoperate. That's the interoperability of exchange of information between two devices. Like you can see here, as you can see here, between Bob and Alice. So you can see the certificate database, and then you can see the body that helps to regulate this, meaning that at every point in time, information has to pass through that body to check the certificate to be sure that there's no compromise. So not all PKI certificates are directly received from the certificate authority. A registration authority, RA, is a subordinate CA and is certified by a root CA to issue certificate for specific users. So the PKI authorities systems. So many vendors provide CA servers as managed service or as an end user product. Organization may also implement private PKIs if they want, using Microsoft Server or Open SSL. And then the CA also issues certificate based on classes, which determine how trusted a certificate is. And all this, like we said, is to ensure that it's from a trusted source at every point in time. And the PKI trust system can form different topologies of trust, which are as follows. So we have the single root PKI topology, but in this case, is the single root topology. The root CA issues all certificates to end users within the same organization. On larger networks, PKI CAs may be linked using two basic architectures. And in this case, for the cross-certified CA topologies, this has to do with peer-to-peer model in which individual CA establish trust relationships with other CAs by crossing certified CA certificates. And then for the hierarchical, as you can see from topology, the root CA, which is at the highest level of the CA, can issue certificate to end users and to subordinate CA. This is just a way to show you the distribution of how these CAs are being distributed. And like we said, all is to check and be sure that the information that is being sent can be trusted. And once it is trusted, to also give room for other systems or other end devices or users to also send through the same medium. So interoperability of different PKI vendors. Interoperability between the PKI and its supporting services is concerned because many CA vendors have proposed and implemented proprietary solutions. So to address the interoperability concern, the IETF, which is the Internet Engineering Task Force, published the Internet X.509 Public Key Infrastructure Certificates Policy and Certification Practices Framework. This is actually reserved for comment 2527. What you have is because if private individuals begin to own their own, you have several CA vendors. The issue here is interoperability, so that every vendor CA can operate with other CAs without any interjections. And that's the reason why the IETF came up with this standard. So of course, with time, it will be enforced. So for now, it's at the reserve for comment. And the X.502 version 3 standard define the format of a digital certificate. So certificate enrollment, authentication, and revocation. So in this case, all systems that are leveraged the PKI must have the CA public key, which is called the self-signed certificate. So the CA public key verifies all the certificates issued by the CA and is vital for the proper operation of the PKI. And also in this case, the certificate enrollment process is used by host systems to enroll a PKI. So to do so, your CA certificates are retrieved in bound over a network, and the authentication is done out of bound using the telephone. So this is the order of in which the certificate enrollment, authentication, and revocation process takes place. And then the system enrolling with the PKI contacts a CA to request and obtain a digital identity certificate to itself and to get the CA's self-signed certificate. Now, these are the various stages of verification before it's finally being transmitted. So the final stage is to verify that the CA certificate was authentic and is performed using an out-of-bound methods, such as the port, to obtain the fingerprint of the valid CA identified certificate. So we have a lab here which also help to throw more insight to this certification. So in this lab, you complete the following objective: the certificate trusted by your browsers, and then checking for man in the middle. Of course, remember all the certificates we're talking about here is you're trying to see how you can stop the activity of man in the middle, so that at every point in time, it does not alter the signature, the cause of data transmission. So applications and impact of cryptography. So PKI applications, as a public key applications, one, the following provides a short list of common uses of PKIs. One is the SSL, TS certificate based on peer authentication. This is also this is secure network traffic using IPsec VPNs, HTTPS web traffic, which is also on port 443, control access to the network using 802.1x authentication. Also applications like secure email using the SMMIE protocol, MIME protocol, and then secure instant messaging. We also have approved and authorized applications with code signing. Also protect user data with the encryption file system, as EFS. And then we have implement two-factor authentication with smart cards. This is also common. And then securing your USB storage device. These are PKI applications that are readily available. And then we still on the applications and impact of cryptography. You look at encrypted network transactions. So threat actors can use SSL, TLS to introduce regulatory compliance violations, viruses, malware, data loss, and intrusion attempt in the network. So other SSL TLS related issues may be associated with validating the certificate of a web server. So when this occurs, the web browser will display a security warning. And in this case, it will show you PKI related issues associated with the security warnings, which include validity date range. Recall we say the X.509 version 3 is still reserved for common certificate. It's specified not for and not after date if the current date is outside the range. The web browser display a message, which oftentimes you can see to let you know if there are some issues. And then the signature validation error. If a web browser cannot validate the signature on the certificate, there is no assurance that the public key in the certificate is authentic. So the web browser will always have to do that. As in the case it shows, it prompts you with an error, so what you can see to your right hand side. At that point in time, it tells you that the public key is not authentic. All that is to show you if the site or the resources you're trying to access is reliable or not. Okay. So, okay, sorry. Okay, so encryption and security monitoring. So network monitoring becomes more challenging when packets are encrypted. Of course, it is true. You've encrypted your packet and you're doing monitoring at the same time. So as HTTPS introduced end-to-end encrypted HTTP traffic, it is not as easy to pick into user traffic. So you could see here that, of course, we use the HTTP traffic, but in this case, you've done end-to-end encryption, and that's why you're using port 443. So also, security analysts must know how to circumvent and solve these issues. Here's a list of some of the things that a security analyst could do in the course of encryption and security monitoring. And one is to configure rules to distinguish between SSL and non-SSL traffic. And then two, HTTPS and non-HTTPS SSL traffic. And also should be able to enhance security through server certificate validation using the CRS and the OCSP. These are standards that are also always used. And then implement anti-malware protection and URL filtering of your HTTPS content. And then also be able to deploy a Cisco SSL appliance to decrypt SSL traffic, send it to intrusion prevention system appliances to identify risks normally hidden by SSL. And so these are more or less expectation from your security analyst that he or she must know how at every point in time to circumvent and solve related issues associated with the listed outcomes. So encryption and security monitoring still. So cryptography is dynamic and always changing, that is for sure. A security analyst must maintain a good understanding of cryptography algorithms and operations to be able to investigate cryptography-related security incidents. And there are two main ways in which this cryptography impacts security investigation. First, attacks can be directed to specifically target the encryption algorithm themselves. So you could have an attack that could just be directly on the encryption algorithm. And after the algorithm has been cracked and the attacker has obtained the keys, remember the aim of this cryptography is encryption, trying to make sure you have private public keys to encrypt, decrypt this data. But you can imagine a situation whereby it has been hacked or obtained by the threat actor or the attacker. So any encrypted data that has been captured can be decrypted and by the attacker and read, thus exposing your private data. And then secondly, the security investigation is also affected because data can be hidden in plain sight by encrypting it. And so in summary, public cryptography from yesterday to now, we'll be able to look at that the four elements of the secure communications are to do with data integrity, the origin authentication, and then data confidentiality and data non-repudiation. And also looked at the hash functions, and then we recall yesterday we said it's also an algorithm that also is used to encrypt your data and produces a fixed length that condensed representation called the hash. And there are two classes of encryption that are used to provide data confidentiality. We said it's either asymmetric or symmetric. Recall when we mentioned the symmetric encryption, we did mention the DES, the 3DES, the AES, they are all based on the premise that each communicating party knows the shared key. And then for the asymmetric, we did mention the public key and the private key, and we said it requires the private key to decrypt, just like it requires the public key to encrypt. And then data confidentiality can also be ensured using asymmetric algorithms. These are highlights of what we've looked at. And then the authentication objective of the asymmetric algorithm. And then looking at the Diffie-Hellman, as a DH, which is an asymmetric mathematical equation algorithm. And we said this is a security provided by two end devices. And then we did mention, we say the IPsec VPN is an example. We also mentioned the SSH as an example of the DH, which is the Diffie-Hellman. So we've talked on this, so it's be nice we do these labs and walk through this. So quickly we'll look at the next module for today, first module for today, which is endpoint protection. So let's discuss on endpoint protection. So let's quickly look at the objective of what to refer to, what we want to cover under endpoint. We look at the method of mitigating malware. And when we talk about endpoint, for short, is you're looking at your end devices, the users, talking about resources or content that are in your repositories, either at the server end or the user end. Explain how a sandbox is used to analyze malware. So anti-malware protection. So endpoint threats. So endpoint can be defined as hosts on the network that can access or accessed by other hosts. So it's either the host is accessing or is being accessed. That is what is referred to as endpoint. So each endpoint is potentially a way for malicious software to gain access to network. You agree with me that if the endpoint are user devices and they have access or they can be accessed. So you can imagine if a hacker or threat actor accesses any of these endpoints. For sure, it can use that same, through that same device to be able to access the critical infrastructure or the critical assets and be able to steal vital information. So devices that remotely access network through VPNs are also endpoint that could inject malware into VPN network from the public network. So several common types of malware have been found to significantly change features in less than 24 hours in order to evade detection. So let's look at endpoint security in this case. As many attackers or attacks originate from inside the network. So you could see that you have those attacks coming also from network. Securing an internal LAN is nearly as important as securing the outside network parameter. So after an internal host is infiltrated, it can become a starting point for an attacker to gain access to critical systems, like we said, and such as your server and sensitive information. So there are two internal LAN elements to secure. The first one is the endpoint. The second one is the network infrastructure. And so we're looking at the host-based malware protection. So the host-based anti-malware virus as antivirus software and host-based firewalls are used to protect mobile devices using your VPN. So antivirus, anti-malware software. So example of the antivirus and anti-malware is a software that is installed on a host to detect and mitigate virus. A malware, for example, your Windows Defender, which comes with more recent Windows operating system like Windows 10. I know some version of Windows 8 and then Windows 11. And threat protection, Cisco AMP for endpoints, Norton security. These are all anti-malware antiviruses. The anti-malware programs may detect viruses using three different approaches. It could be signature-based. In this case, recognize various characteristics of non-malware files, and then it could also be through the heuristics-based or the behavior-based. So these are actually the different anti-malware programs that may be detected. So here you can see the host-based malware. This software is installed on a host. Remember we said the host at the endpoint. And so we're looking at, that means the host is also a point of vulnerability, because once it is hacked, automatically accessing the network will be very, very obvious. So this software is installed on a host. It restricts incoming and outgoing connections to connections as initiated by that host only. So some firewall software can prevent a host from becoming infected and stop infected hosts from spreading malware to other hosts. So this function is included in some operating systems. For example, Windows includes Windows Defender firewalls with advanced security. So it will help to curtail the spread of these viruses. So we also have the network-based malware protection. That's protecting the endpoint. The borderless network can accomplish using network-based as well as host-based techniques. So then we have the network-based malware protection, like I said. In this case, some example of the devices and techniques that implement host protections at the network level. We have the advanced malware protection. In this case, it provides endpoint protection from viruses and malware. We also have the email security appliance, which provides filtering of spam with potentially malicious emails before they reach the endpoint. Because we're trying to say how best you can protect the endpoint, which is the user device. So web security appliance provides filtering of website and blacklisting. And then we have the network admission control that permits only authorized and compliant systems to connect to the network. Then we have the host-based intrusion. For the host-based intrusion, you're looking at your firewalls. So host-based personal firewalls are standalone software programs that control traffic entering or leaving the computer. That would mention the Windows Defender, we have IP tables, the NF tables, we have TCP wrappers. These are some examples of host-based firewall. We also have the host-based intrusion detection. In this case, the host-based intrusion detection system is designed to protect hosts against known and unknown malware. The interesting part of this is that there's also a lab that you're going to carry out that also further explain this. So the host-based intrusion detection can perform detailed monitoring and reporting on the system configuration and application security. So you're going to use the security onion to work on this and demonstrate the HIDs. It's also a comprehensive security application and combines the functionality of anti-malware applications with firewall functionalities. Okay. So we'll do that application. We'll now look at application security. So attack surface. An attack surface is the total sum of the vulnerability in a given system that is accessible to the hacker. Like I said earlier, is whichever space that the hacker can be able to use to gain access to critical infrastructure is referred to as attack surface. It can consist of open ports and servers or host software running on internet, facing servers, wireless network protocols, and users. Components of the attack surface, which also include network attack surface, exploit vulnerabilities in network, software attack surface. So when we all these listings you're seeing here has to do with various activities within application. So you could have a network on its own can create its own vulnerabilities. You have software vulnerabilities, and then human attack also can also be another weakness or vulnerability. So these are all the avenues, and once it is exploited by the threat actors, automatically it can lead to some kind of compromise of your critical assets. So application blacklisting and whitelisting. So still under application security, limiting access to potential threats by creating a list of prohibited applications is known as blacklisting. So once you know the prohibited application, automatically those applications are under blacklisting. So application blacklist can detect which user applications are not permitted to run on the computer, and the white list specify which programs are allowed. So the ones that are not allowed at blacklist, the ones that allow are whitelisted. So application blacklisting and whitelisting. So website can also be whitelisted. That means it can also be blacklisted. If it's blacklisted, we're saying that it does not meet the criteria. In other words, if it contains some malicious software is already compromised. So we're looking at the issue of trust here. So this blacklist can be manually created or they can be obtained from various security services. So blacklist can be continuously updated by the security services and distributed to firewalls and other security systems that use them. The Cisco Firepower Security Management System is an example of a system and I can access the Cisco Talos Security Intelligence Service to obtain blacklist. So to give you some kind of guide of blacklisted sites and all that. So system-based sandboxing, what does it mean? It's a technique that allows users, that allows suspicious files to be executed and analyzed in a safe environment. The Kiko Sandbox is a popular free malware analysis system sandbox. It can run locally and have malware samples submitted to it for analysis. And any run is an online tool that offers the ability to upload the malware samples for analysis like any other online sandbox. All this is more or less, it's a technique that will allow you to allow suspicious files to be executed. The essence is to analyze this in a safe environment, not to cause harm within the network, but rather for research or just to check the invasion of this malware. So that's what we said in a more secure environment. So you can use using a sandbox to launch malware. There's a video here, you need to play the video on the material. Okay. And so that's it for endpoints. Recall your endpoint, your end users devices. Okay, so let's before we come to the end, you can give you room to ask questions. Yeah, let's look at endpoint vulnerability assessment, which is module 23. Remember, we talked about endpoint. We're still on endpoint. That means this module just addressing endpoint generally. First, we'll look at endpoint. In summary, we'll look at endpoint. We'll look at how endpoint should be secure. We'll look at application services and all that on endpoint devices. But here we look at endpoint vulnerability assessment. So quickly, let's look at the objective for this particular module is to look at the value of the network and server profiling and look at how the CVSS, which is the common vulnerability scoring system, are used to describe security vulnerabilities. We also discuss on secure device management, as looking at the techniques used to protect data and assets, and then look at how information security management systems are used to protect assets. So in this case, we're looking at the vulnerability and the protection of this asset. So network and server profiling. Network device profiling actually in this case provides statistical baseline information that can serve as reference point for normal network and device performance. So let's look at elements of network profile. Remember, this has to do with statistical baseline information. So one of this network profile is section duration. Section duration in this case is what is the average time between the establishment of a data flow and its termination. And then 2 is the total throughput, which is more like the actual performance of the network. So in this case, what is the average amount of data passing from a given source to a given destination in a given period of time? That actually determines the throughput of that device. Remember, the throughput will vary from channel to channel, which device is passing through. And that's why we say per time, by particular defined period. So, and then we have the critical asset address space, and then the typical traffic type. So these are elements of network profile. So here we're looking at server profiling still. So a server profile is a security baseline for a given server. The server profile is used to establish the accepted operating state of servers. The server profiles elements are as follows. The listening ports. Remember, we're looking at how you're going to protect this endpoint, and we said the server is also one of them. So we're looking at profiling the server. And in this case, the server profile element is expected as follows. One, listening to the ports. Two, logged in users and accounts. Three, service accounts. Four, software environment. So network anomaly detection. The network behavior is described by a large amount of diverse data. Would you agree? The anomaly of data is subject to different scenarios. So in this case, the picture of packet flow, features of the packet themselves, and the telemetry from multiple sources. Big data analytics techniques can be used to analyze these data and detect variations from the baseline. For the big data, you're looking at both the structured and unstructured data, which also include your logs. So the anomaly detection can identify infected hosts on the network that are scanning for other vulnerability hosts. And also the anomaly detection also can be based on a specified version of an algorithm designed to detect an unusual condition at the border routers of any enterprise. So let's look at the vulnerability testing. Network vulnerability testing includes risk analysis, vulnerability assessment, and penetration testing. So when you talk about vulnerability testing, you must look at the risk, the vulnerability assessment, and the penetration testing. The table actually lists examples of this. So for the risk analysis, the tools that are required here is internal or external tools, consultant, risk management framework can be used to check out this risk. And for your vulnerability assessment, these actually tools like your OpenVAS, the Microsoft Baseline, Analyzer, the Nessus, these are examples. The Nmap would help also for vulnerability assessment. And then for your penetration testing, using hacking techniques and tools to penetrate network defenses. An example is the Metasploit, the Core Impact, Ethical Hackers, and also Linux too is another very software tool and also can be used for vulnerability testing. So let's look at the common, though we've talked about this before. Let's look at common vulnerability scoring system. For the CVSS, the common vulnerability scoring system is a risk assessment tool, and then this is designed to convey the common attributes and severity of vulnerabilities in computer hardware and software systems. They provide standardized vulnerability scores, which are readily available on their site. It also provides an open framework with metrics to all users. CVSS helps to prioritize risk. The Forum of Incident Response and Security Teams has been designated as the custodian of the CVSS to promote its adoption globally. So if you visit the site, you can also see, awesome. You can see their scoring and all that. So the CVSS metric groups uses 3 groups of metrics to assess vulnerabilities. Base metrics group, in this case, it represents the characteristic of a vulnerability that are constant over time across content. And 2 is the temporal metric group. In this case, it measures the characteristics of a vulnerability that may be changed over time, but not across user environment. And then 3, environmental metric group, which measures the aspects of your vulnerability that are rooted in specific environment. So these are the metrics, the diverse metrics group under the CVSS. And recall I said it has to do with scoring and the rating. And the good thing also is that they have a site that you can also see new publications from their activities. So the CVSS base metric group, exploitability metrics include the following criteria. It is based on attack vector, attack complexity, privilege is required, user interactions, and scope. The base metric group impact metrics components will also include the following: the confidentiality, impact, integrity. These are all the diverse metrics that are actually used to ascertain even the scoring. And the CVSS processes use a tool called CVSS version 3.1 to calculator. It's likely a questionnaire in which the choices are made that describe the probability for each metric group. Here you can see a score is generated and numeric severity rating is displayed. So it has an inbuilt CSVS version 3.1 calculator as a tool to be able to come up with scoring. So after the base metric group is completed, the temporary and environmental metric values define the base metric result to provide overall score. So with this, you can be able to tell the severity of these vulnerabilities. So as you can see here, look at the rating for none is 0, when it's low is 0.1 to 3.9. And the condition here is that the higher the severity rating, the greater the potential impact of an exploit and the greater the urgency in addressing vulnerability. So any vulnerability that exceeds 3.9 should be seen and should be addressed. And if you can see 3.9 is low, that's the peak of low. So anything above 3.9 automatically is medium. So the ranges of scores and corresponding qualitative meaning is shown in the table. Common vulnerabilities and exposures identified provide a standard way to research a reference to vulnerabilities. Also, threat intelligence services. Remember, we talk about threat intelligence, how to gather different intelligence when it comes to the different attacks and all that. They treated this on that particular module. It also services use the CVE identifiers. So we said as part of threat intelligence boundary, CVE is needed at every point in time. So other vulnerability information sources will include National Vulnerability Database. And then let's look at secure device management. And we're looking at that, we'll talk about risk management. And what does risk management entails? Risk management involves the selection and specification of security controls for an organization. So a mandatory activity in risk assessment is to identify threats and vulnerabilities. So ways to respond to identified risk include risk avoidance, that's to stop performing the activities that create risk, or risk reduction, take measures to reduce this vulnerability, or risk sharing, shift some of the risks to other parties to handle as well, or risk retention, you accept the risks and its consequences. And in this case, you're saying that just as the risk is already part of the overall operation of that organization. So you removing the risk, meaning that you're removing the value. So sometimes they're incorporated. So This is what we refer as risk management. And then vulnerability management has a life cycle, which is to discover. And when you discover, that's when you develop a network baseline and try security vulnerabilities on a regular automated schedule. And then 2, you prioritize the assets. You categorize assets into groups or business units, and then assign a business value based on their criticality to business operations. And then 3, assets. In this case, you have to define a baseline risk profile to eliminate the risk based on asset criticality, vulnerability, threats, and asset classification. So these steps is quite critical in the entire life cycle of vulnerability management. And then we have report, and then remediate, and then verify. Let's look at our tools and techniques for asset management. Automated discovery and inventory of the actual state of the device. In this case, you're looking at the discovery and the inventory of the state of the device itself. That's the device that you have your assets, which is your data. Articulation of the desired state for those devices using policies, using plans and procedures in the organization's information security plan, and also identification of non-compliant authorized assets. And then remediation or acceptance of device state, possible iteration of desired state definition, and then also repeat the process at a regular or ongoing intervals. These are the tools, techniques for asset management, because the asset has to do with your infrastructure and your data. And let's also talk about the mobile device management. Mobile devices cannot be physically controlled on the premise of an option, which is true. You can't tell people how to use your device, their mobile devices. You can't create strong security policies for that. So the MDM systems, which is a mobile device management system, such as Cisco Meraki Systems Manager, allows the security personnel to configure, monitor, and update a very diverse set of mobile clients from the cloud. So you can see a demonstration of this to your right-hand side. And then configuration management. In this case, you're looking at as defined by NIST configuration management. It's actually a collection of activities focused on establishing and maintaining the integrity of products and system through control of the processes for initializing, changing, and monitoring the configuration of those products and system. So the configuration tools include your Puppet, Chef, Ansible, and Salt as Stack. So we also have what we refer to as enterprise patch management. Remember, patching is required at every point in time for compliance. Okay. So the device, in the case of secure, there's a patch management techniques. So first of all, we said that you need enterprise patch management. The patch management involves all aspects of software patching, includes identifying required patches, acquiring, distributing, installing, and verifying. We need patches, of course, like most antiviruses need patches, operating systems need patches, and then needs to be updated time to time. So patch management is required by some compliance regulations such as Sarbanes, Oxley, and then the Health Insurance Portability Accountability Act for medical purposes. They all require a patch. So agent-based, this requires a software agent to be running on each host to be patched. The agent reports whether vulnerability software is installed on the host or not. This is for reporting. and the agent communicates with the patch management server and determine if patches exist in that required installations and install the patches. So the agent-based approaches are the preferred means of patching mobile devices. So you see that at every point in time, it does more or less like a check back on the server in the system to see there's a need for one, and if there is, it will have to trigger and see that it is being updated, and with that you have the patch. So that is for mobile. Remember, for mobility, we talked about how this can be managed. And then patch management techniques, looking at it from agentless scanning. This has to do with patch management servers scan the network for devices that require patching. And then the server will have to determine which patches are required and install those patches on the client. And only devices that are on scan network segment can be patched, which can be a problem for mobile devices. And we also have the passive network monitoring. In this case, the devices requiring patching are identified through the monitoring of traffic on the network. And this approach is only effective for software that includes version information in its network traffic. So here has to do with passive network monitoring. It's passive network monitoring because in this case, you're looking at those devices that are connected on the network, and it's only effective for software, particularly that you're looking at version, maybe updating it to earlier version or so. And then let's quickly look at information security management system. The security management system consists of management framework to identify, analyze, and address information security risks. So first is to identify, two is to analyze, and three is to address. So the information system management systems provide acceptable models that guide organization in planning, implementing, governing, and evaluating information security programs. Like we said, the essence of this is to always, at every point in time, identify, analyze, and address information security issues. So you can see a general model for organization capacity that addresses how you can identify, analyze, and address issues around these border areas. So the ISO 27001, our family of standards, and that's internationally accepted standard that facilitates business conducted between countries, a global industry-wide prescription for information system management system. So you can see the plan. The plan is to understand business objectives. You have to define activities, scope. The plan also has to do with assess and manage support. Assess and define the risk, perform asset management and vulnerability assessment. Now it also has to do with to create, to establish, and then to train personnel, allocate resources, and then you check, and then you act. Remember for you to be able to identify, analyze, and then eradicate any issues. We're saying that you must comply or follow this information security management system order. So it's to plan, do, check, and then before you act. Okay. Okay. So information security management system still, we have what we call the NIST cybersecurity framework. For this, it's actually a set of standards designed to integrate existing standards, guidelines, and practices to help better manage and reduce cybersecurity risk. So we have a table that helps to look at the core function of the NIST. And what are the core functions? to identify, that you have to develop an organizational understanding to manage, as in this case, they have to know how to manage cybersecurity risk to system, asset, data, and capabilities. And two, they have to protect. What are you protecting? In the case of protect, it means to develop and implement the appropriate safeguards to ensure delivery of critical infrastructure services. And then to detect. In the case of detect, to develop and implement the appropriate activities. And then to respond is to develop and implement the appropriate activities to act on detected cybersecurity event. And then to recover at this point in time is to implement the appropriate activities to maintain plans for resilience and to restore any capabilities or services that were impaired during cybersecurity events. So you could see that the identify is first to check, to look at the risk system and check the level, and then to protect. At this point in time, you are looking at more of safeguarding, and then to detect by identifying the activities and the occurrence of this cybersecurity issues. And then, like we said, you respond. In case of to respond, you said you have to act on the detected issues. And then you recover. In case of recovery, you're looking at restore. So that's all about endpoint probability assessment summary. The good thing is that we have labs that will help us throw more insight to this. At this point, I will pause and ask if there are questions. I have all the models open so that we can look at those issues before we go on. So are there questions in this regard about endpoint security? So any issue, any question? Okay, if there are no questions, we'll just quickly look at module 24 for today. So module 24 has to do with technologies and protocols. This will give us, take us through process, guide us into the next stage of the module support we're discussing. So under this, we'll quickly look at objectives, objective of this, which has to do with we have to be able to look at the behavior of common network protocols and the content of security. And two, explain security technologies affect how they affect the ability to monitor and monitor common network protocols. So you look at these network protocols in the context of security. Because we have several protocols, network protocols, but these network protocols, in as much as they are there for day-to-day services, and in fact, they are there to make networking what it is, they also are prone to certain security. So we just want to look at those protocols. So the first is monitoring common protocols. So we look at the syslog and the NTP. The syslog and the NTP is the network time protocol. Hello, can you mute your mic, please, if you're not? Please, can you mute your mic? Okay, so the syslog and the NTP are actually extensions to the network of the cybersecurity analyst. They're very, very important. The syslog is a standard used for logging events messages from your network devices and your endpoint. It's actually the standard that allows for a system neutral means of transmitting, storing, analyzing messages. So many types of devices from many different vendors can use this log to send log entries to central servers that run on syslog daemon. This centralization of log collection helps to make security monitoring practical. And then servers that run syslog typically listed on UDP port 514. And so the essence of all this is to keep track of activities on the network, that's the entries, what enters into the service at every point in time. Like we said, it runs on a syslog daemon, meaning that it has this end-to-end dialogue at every point in time. And those dialogue, even when it's doing those listening, it still keeps track of all the activities. And then it uses specifically UDP port 512. Recall what the UDP is. The UDP is part of your transport layer. It's one of the communication pathway for transport layers. The syslog is so important to security and monitoring and may be a target for threat actors. In as much as it's important for security monitoring, threat actors want to actually target it. So some exploits, such as those involving data exfiltration, can take a long time to complete due to the very slow ways in which data is secretly stolen from the network. So some attackers may try to hide the fact that exfiltration is occurring. They attack the syslog servers that contain the information that could lead to detection of the exploit. Of course, the syslog gives you a track, gives you a log, provide information that you can able to use to trace this exploit. So the thing is that the threat actors now at this point in time want to know to track that and take that off. Of course, threat actors don't want to leave traces. If you see where a criminal tried to bug into a facility, when they are leaving, they try to take everything off so they cannot be traced. That's what the threat actor is doing. So hackers may attempt to block the transfer of data from syslog client to servers, tamper with or destroy log data, or tamper with the software that creates and transmits log messages. So the next generation syslog encryption, known as the syslog NG, offers an enhancement that can help prevent some of the exploits that target syslog. So for the NTP, the syslog messages are usually time-stamped as the messages come from any devices. So it is important that the devices share a constant time clock, and this can be achieved by using the network time protocol, which is the NTP. So NTP uses a hierarchy of authoritative time sources to share time information between devices on the network. The NTP operates on UDP ports 123. Need to note that down. And the threat actors may attempt to attack the NTP infrastructure in order to corrupt the time information used to relate logged network events. So threat actors have been known to use NTP systems to direct DDoS attacks. So you can see if they're able to tag the NTP, they use it for DDoS through vulnerabilities in client or server software. So these attacks can disrupt network ability. Of course, once there's a flood of the DDoS, you're sure that the network will not be available. So the DNS is now used to many system of malware. Some varieties of malware use DNS to communicate with other command and control servers to exfiltrate data in traffic, disguised as normal DNS queries. That we have also discussed prior to this time, how hackers also take advantage of DNS. So malware could encode stolen data as a subdomain portion of a DNS lookup for a domain where the name server is under control of an attacker. Recall, before any communication takes place on the internet, there's always that domain. So the DNS is one thing that has to resolve the domain name at every point in time. So if a threat actor is already taking hold of the DNS, it means that it can be able to check each packet and see the sensitivity of those packets. And then we also have the HTTP and the HTTPS. The HTTP is the backbone protocol of the World Wide Web, which you already know. The HTTPS is more or less providing security for that protocol. So HTTP does not protect your data, which you know, for an alteration or interception. So you have to be careful with the browsing, on such site because of the risk that is involved. Then HTTPS is more secure compared to the HTTP. So we'll talk about the email protocol. The email protocols such as your SMTP, as your passport 25, simple mail transfer protocol, your POP, post office protocol, which is port 110, and your IMAP can be used by threat actors to spread malware, infiltrate data, or provide channels to malware servers, as you can see in the figure. So your SMTP send, your SMTP will always send, and then through as a delivery agent, and then you have your POP as a receiving agent. So what we're saying here, the SMTP send data from a host to a mail server and between the mail server. So we're looking at, because there's always that sending back and forth, what do you expect? We're saying that there's a security breach here, whereby the threat actor, threat actor sitting between where you have your SMTP coming in and when it's going out. So automatically it's a compromising your server is the main objective of the threat actor. Then we have the ICMP, which is the Internet Control Message Protocol. If you recall, we said this is sensitive because ICMP is sent every time to check for connectivity, and that's why you have to be careful when you're sending ICMP. For ping, also the network can also be used for data infiltration. And then let's quickly look at security technologies. Example is the access list control. Packet filtering are technologies that contribute to an evolving set of network security. The access list control, what it does, as you can see from your right hand side, it helps you to actually permit, can permit ICMP and any you can deny any of those protocols, as the case may be. So it's a security technologies that helps you to permit certain group of systems or IP addresses, deny certain port services and all that. And the essence is to be able to regulate activities on the network. And I also have the NAT, the network address resolution port, and the PAT that can complicate security monitoring. You can see from the figure also, for the issue of the case of the NAT, you can do one-to-one, as between a client and the server. But they can also complicate security in as much. So this problem can be relevant with net flow data. So we say that if a path is effective, it could be difficult to log a specific inside device that is requesting and receiving traffic when it enters the network. The truth is that in the case of parties, this is one-to-many. So it becomes an issue. So it also complicates security issues. And so encryption and encapsulation and tunneling. Encryption can present challenges to security monitoring by making packet details unreadable. Of course, when it's encrypted, you can be able to read it in real time when you want to do monitoring. So encryption is part of VPN technologies, and VPN IP is used to carry encrypted traffic, that you agree with me, between the two nodes. The encrypted traffic essentially establishes a virtual point-to-point connection between networks over public facilities. So your encryption makes the traffic unreadable to any other devices by the VPN end. So in as much as it's encrypted fine for security, it also complicates issues. Peer-to-peer networking and Tor. So we also have, some of you in peer-to-peer networking as shown in the figure, hosts can operate in both client and server roles. So the three types of peer-to-peer applications are file sharing, processor sharing, instant messages. So in file sharing, point-to-point files on the participating machine are shared with members of the point-to-point network. So for instance, your Bitcoin is on peer-to-peer operations, and BitTorrent is a peer-to-peer file sharing network. We also have Tor browsers as well. So these are also some kind of they also provide some ways to help you protect both the client and server in terms of communications. But critically, what we're saying is that it sometimes can hide vital information and encapsulate them behind. But the essence of all this is to protect. But we are also saying that while this protection is still made available, for instance, like the peer-to-peer network activity can avoid firewall protections and is a common vector for the spread of malware. So, of course, the protocol is fine, but at the same time, it can also be another avenue that can be exploited by threat actors. So, point-to-point is heritable dynamic. It can operate by connecting to the numerous destination IP addresses and can also use dynamically port numbering. So, your processor sharing point-to-point network the data processor cycle to distribute computational tasks. And there's a cancer research searching for extraterrestrials, and scientific research used related processor cycles to distribute computational tasks. And then the instant messaging is also considered to be a peer-to-peer application. The IAM has a legitimate value within the application that have geographical distributed project teams. So in this case, specialized instant messaging applications are available, such as your WebEx team, your platforms which are most secure than IAM that uses the public service. So here we also have a Tor. Like I said, Tor is a software platform network of peer-to-peer. You can also have Tor also for browsers. So when browsers begin, the browser constructs a layered end-to-end path across Tor servers network that is encrypted as shown. And this also adds some security feature to your network, as in the case of peer-to-peer network. So each encrypted layer is peeled away like the layers of onion as a traffic traverse a Tor base. So the layers contain the encrypted next hop that can be read by the router that needs to read the information. Because as it moves from one point to the other, definitely it has to de-encapsulate that and take that security shield for proper interpretation. So in this way, no single device knows the entire path to the destination, and routing information is readable only by the device that represents it. So finally, at the end of the top part, traffic reaches its internet destination. So when traffic is returned to the source, an encrypted layered path is again constructed back and forth. So all this is a way to help control or reduce vulnerabilities and enhances the security of your packets across the network. So we also have load balancing. In this case of load balancing, the DNS. Load balancing involves the distribution of the traffic between devices on network path to prevent overwhelming network resources. With too much traffic. That's for load balancing. So it means that there's a need to balance the traffic across the network at every point in time. So if redundant resources exist, a load balancing algorithm or device will work to distribute traffic between Tor's resources as shown in the figure. So one way of this is done through technologies that use DNS to send traffic to resources that have the same domain name, then multiple IP addresses. So the same name, multiple IP addresses. So if it has multiple addresses, it has to balance with across the traffic. So in summary, technologies and protocols, we talked about syslog. So syslog is quite important and is needed to be able to track. And we say it's a syslog daemon, and it has a dialog control between client and the server. It keeps track of all activities on the network. And we just said it's quite sensitive in the sense that the attackers do, or the threat actors try to intercept, into the syslog, knowing fully well that the syslog is used to trace the path of the threat vector. So the only way is the threat actor will want to go in and take off, or probably trace this whole path and take them off, so that it will be difficult during monitoring analysis to be able to trace the path of the threat actor. So syslog is usually timestamped. We say that as the message comes from many devices. And it's important that the devices share a consistent time clock using the NTP. We also said that these guys, the threat actors, uses the same NTP to flood unwanted traffic, so that they can make a network unavailable. And then DNS is also used by many types of malware. Some varieties of malware that use DNS to communicate with command and control, like the CNC servers, and to infiltrate data in traffic disguised as normal DNS queries. So they take advantage of the DNS. In the case of the DNS lookup, because for sure it has to do a lookup before to resolve the domain name. So we also talk about the exploit on HTTP, knowing fully that it's not secure and all that. So this brings us to the end of module. So I'm going to pause at this point in time to entertain questions. If there are questions you ask before we go on in terms of the technologies and protocols, in terms of endpoint, and then securing endpoint, and then talking about network monitoring and looking at cryptography. So if there are questions, please, we need to ask now. So I'm looking at concluding the theoretical part of this course by tomorrow. But tomorrow we'll be looking at module 25, 6, 7, and 8, which will bring us to the end of the discussion. And by next week, Tuesday and Thursday, let me say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I will be going through some of the labs, because those labs you need to be in class, because you also be tested in some of them, your final lab. So I advise you get prepared for next week. So far, we should be able to work on labs to module 24, and then you send them to me between now and next week. And I also give room for lab submission up to the upper week before I end the course. So if there are questions, please feel free. Hello, are we there? I hope I've not lost us. Hello?
Yes, we are here.
Okay, fine. So if there are questions based on the discussion we had, you can ask. And like I said, I'll be concluding this part of discussion tomorrow. But next week, we're going to have some labs, and then those who want to write the final exams next week, 17, Mr. 17? No, on the 12th, right? And they said it's also open on the 17th. And for those in South Africa that are observing load shedding, you can also share your timing with me. So that
the practice exam will be at the same day.
No, I'm going to activate the practice exam. Anything after by the weekend, it will be activated. So from Friday, you can start taking the practice exam. So from Friday, practice exam and the feedback will all be activated. For those of you who will be taking the exam on Thursday next week. In fact, for everybody. be rest assured that you have the practice and the feedback. Is that clear? Hello?
So the main exam will be on Tuesday.
Yes, I said on Thursday. On Thursday will be the final exam.
What
For
about
those who are ready for Thursday. On Tuesday, we'll be looking at some labs, specific labs. On Wednesday, we'll be looking at labs. Then on Thursday, you do the finals. Same also, I said by 17, you'll be doing your finals and then the lab exam. Please note this, you have online exams to write and you have lab exams to do and submit. And everybody will be doing the lab exam at the same time. Okay, there are no questions, then I've come to the end of today's discussion. But please, you have to prepare ahead. So I'm giving us the window between 12th and 17th to write the finals. So you can make all your plans within this particular given time. So there are no questions, then I'll share the timeline for this exam again. I said that, but I just want to see that we finish today's discussion before sharing that. So we're going to end this track by tomorrow, and then the timeline for your exam will be specified. Like I said, 12th, 17th. So the time also will be specified so that you can plan yourself for this period. Is that clear, please? Hello, is that clear? Hello, have I lost us?
Okay, but we hope that we can do all labs.
Yeah, the labs. You keep submitting your labs. Like I said, you should work on your labs and submit them. Even after the final exams, you still be submitting your labs because you have a lab exams to do. That will come after your final exam on 17. So be rest assured that you're doing your labs either the following day, which is 18. So I think it will be best to do it the next day.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that would be better. So once you've done with the online exam 17, then you write the labs on 18. Is that clear? And please, your online assessment, some of you are yet to take. I don't know what's happening. Some of you attempted only one module and you left it. Does it mean you don't have time to go through the material, or we're so busy to take this assessment? Because once the class is ended, those who didn't take assessment, definitely who did not do the labs cannot graduate from this class.
Hello, sir.
Okay. Yes, I'm with you, please.
I sent messages to you, sir, as regards the online assessment, and you did not respond yet, sir.
Oh, really? Apologies.
Yes, sir.
When?
On the platform and even on your personal page, sir.
So what are you looking at here?
I told you then, you said I should drop my email address, which I did. On my own Netacard
So what's
account,
the problem?
the
What's the
assessment
problem?
is not this. The assessment, I cannot access it, sir.
You
So I
cannot
dropped
access the
my
assessment.
email address. Yes.
Have you taken any assessment before now?
That's why I said from the outset, no.
Have you taken any assessment?
No, sir.
You have not taken any assessment?
Yes, sir.
Have you been enrolled?
Yes, I've been enrolled, sir. I've dropped, maybe when you're done, sir, I dropped my email on your personal page, sir.
No, I can, as I'm talking to you, I'm saying it. I'm asking if you have been enrolled. If you said yes, then you should be able to see the assessment. And if you're not seeing it, probably you're giving me a different email address, or probably you're logging with a different email address then. But whichever way, I'm going to add this one again and see if you could access it. But I am sure that there's some email issues here, because if we enroll you with a particular email and you're using a different email to log in, you might not be able to see the assessment until you use the official email sent to us by Cisco. So What I'm going to do now is to reconcile this email address with with the one given to me, then get back to you. So
Okay,
kindly
sir.
just refresh the chat with me again on this, so I can
Okay, sir.
check. So please
Thank
do
you,
that.
sir.
There's no time to waste again. You're welcome. So if you send it now, I could just do it right away.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So please send in your labs. Like I said, I have a spreadsheet. If your labs are not complete, it will be difficult to accredit you into this program. So if you want to pass the accreditation, definitely you have to do it. Okay, so bye from today. So we'll meet tomorrow. Good night, everyone.
Nice, sir.
Good night.